7 Stoic Principles to Master the Art of Not Caring and Letting Go. Welcome to Daily Stoic Notes, where ancient wisdom meets modern chaos. If you've ever found yourself losing sleep over things you can't control, getting stressed about other people's opinions, or feeling overwhelmed by the constant noise of modern life, then you're exactly where you need to be. Today we're diving deep into 7 powerful Stoic principles that will teach you the art of not caring. And I don't mean becoming cold or indifferent. I mean learning to care about what truly matters while letting go of everything else. These principles have been tested by emperors, slaves, and everyone in between for over 2,000 years. The Stoics weren't emotionless robots. They were some of the most powerful and influential people in history who learned to navigate life's challenges with unshakable inner peace. They mastered something that seems impossible in our hyper-connected, anxiety-driven world, the ability to let go. Before we begin this transformative journey, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. These principles aren't just philosophical concepts. They're practical tools that will revolutionize how you approach every challenge, every relationship, and every moment of uncertainty in your life. Now, let's discover how to master the art of not caring and letting go. Principle 1. Control what's within, release what's without. Here's the foundation of all Stoic wisdom, and it's deceptively simple. You can only control your thoughts, your actions, and your responses. Everything else, and I mean everything else, is beyond your control. Yet you probably spend most of your mental energy trying to control things that are completely outside your influence. Think about yesterday. How much time did you spend worrying about what other people think? How much energy did you waste being frustrated about traffic, weather, or your boss's mood? How often did you replay conversations in your head, wishing you had said something different? Seneca wrote, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." This is the brutal truth about human nature. We torture ourselves with scenarios that exist only in our minds. We create elaborate stories about what people think of us, what might go wrong, and what we should have done differently. Here's what's happening right now in your life. You're trying to control your reputation, but you can't control what people think. You're trying to control outcomes, but you can only control your effort. You're trying to control the future, but you can only control your present actions. You're trying to control other people's behavior, but you can only control your response to it. The Stoic practice is radical. Accept that you control almost nothing, and find freedom in that acceptance. When your train is delayed, you can't control the delay, but you can control whether you spend that time being angry or reading a book. When someone criticizes you, you can't control their opinion, but you can control whether you let it ruin your day. This isn't about being passive or giving up. It's about directing your energy toward what actually matters. Instead of wasting mental energy on things you can't change, invest that energy in things you can improve. Instead of trying to control the storm, learn to dance in the rain. Marcus Aurelius, who had more power than almost anyone in history, wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." If an emperor understood that true power comes from controlling yourself, not controlling others, maybe it's time you learned the same lesson. The practice is simple but not easy. Every time you catch yourself stressed about something, ask yourself, is this within my control? If the answer is no, let it go. If the answer is yes, take action. This simple filter will eliminate about 80% of your daily stress. Principle 2. Embrace the present moment. The second principle is about mastering your relationship with time. You're probably living everywhere except where you actually are, lost in regrets about the past or anxiety about the future. This mental time travel is destroying your ability to experience life as it actually happens. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Confine yourself to the present." This isn't just philosophical advice. It's a practical instruction for mental health. When you're fully present, you can't be anxious about the future or depressed about the past. You can only deal with what's actually happening right now. Here's what's really going on. Your mind is constantly creating stories about what happened yesterday and what might happen tomorrow. You replay embarrassing moments from years ago. You worry about presentations next week. You regret things you said in high school. You're anxious about retirement. Meanwhile, your actual life is happening right now, and you're missing it. The brutal truth is that most of your suffering exists only in your head. The present moment is rarely as terrible as your thoughts make it seem. Right now, as you're reading this, you're probably not in physical danger. You're not starving. You're not being attacked. Yet your mind might be creating all sorts of dramatic scenarios about problems that don't actually exist in this moment. The Stoics practiced what they called prosouche, continuous attention to the present moment. They understood that this moment is the only one where you have any power. You can't change the past no matter how much you regret it. You can't control the future no matter how much you worry about it. But you can make choices right now that will shape your future. This doesn't mean you shouldn't plan or learn from the past. It means you shouldn't live there. Make your plans, learn your lessons, then return to the present where your actual life is happening. The present moment is where you can take action, where you can experience joy, where you can connect with others, where you can grow. Here's the practice. When you catch your mind wandering to the past or future, gently bring it back to the present. What can you see right now? What can you hear? What can you feel? What action can you take in this moment? This simple redirection will dramatically reduce your anxiety and increase your effectiveness. The irony is that when you stop worrying about the future, you actually create a better future. When you stop regretting the past, you free up mental energy to improve your present. When you focus on now, you become more productive, more creative, and more at peace. Principle 3. Accept change as nature's course. The third principle is about making peace with impermanence. You're probably fighting against change, trying to keep things the same, wanting stability and predictability. But change is the only constant in life, and your resistance to it is causing you tremendous suffering. Epictetus taught, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. This is profound wisdom about the nature of change. Change itself is neutral. It's your interpretation and resistance that creates suffering. You can't stop change, but you can change your relationship with it. Think about all the changes you've resisted in your life. Job changes, relationship changes, health changes, family changes, societal changes. How much energy have you wasted trying to keep things exactly as they were? How much suffering have you created by fighting against the natural flow of life? Here's what's happening. You've developed an attachment to how things are, and you're suffering because things won't stay that way. You want your youth to last forever, but you're aging. You want your relationships to remain exactly as they are, but people grow and change. You want your job to be secure, but industries evolve. You want your health to be perfect, but bodies are fragile. The Stoics understood that everything is in flux. Heraclitus said, "No man ever steps in the same river twice. The river is always flowing, always changing, and so is your life." Fighting against this flow is like trying to stop the ocean with your bare hands, exhausting and futile. But here's the liberating truth. Change is not your enemy. Change is opportunity. Every change brings new possibilities, new experiences, new growth. The job you lost might lead to a better career. The relationship that ended might make space for a more fulfilling one. The challenge you're facing might develop strength you didn't know you had. The practice is to welcome change instead of resisting it. When something changes in your life, instead of immediately thinking this is terrible, try thinking this is interesting. Instead of, why is this happening to me? Try, what can I learn from this? Instead of I want things to go back to how they were, try I wonder what's possible now. This doesn't mean you have to like every change. It means you accept that change is inevitable and choose to work with it rather than against it. You become like water, flexible, adaptable, flowing. The Stoics also taught that you are constantly changing. The person you were yesterday is not exactly the same person you are today. You're always evolving, always growing, always becoming. Embrace this change in yourself as well. Don't try to remain exactly as you are. Allow yourself to grow, to learn, to become better. Change is not something that happens to you. It's something you're actively participating in every moment. You can choose to be a victim of change or a master of change. The choice is yours. Principle 4. Detach from external validation. The fourth principle is about freeing yourself from the opinion prison you've built around yourself. You're probably spending enormous amounts of mental energy trying to manage what other people think about you, seeking approval, avoiding criticism, and measuring your worth by external metrics. Epictetus said, "How much trouble he avoids who does not look to see what his neighbor says or does." This is revolutionary advice in our social media age. You're constantly looking at what others are doing, comparing yourself to others, seeking likes and comments and shares as if they determine your value as a human being. Here's the brutal truth. Most people are too busy worrying about what others think of them to spend much time actually thinking about you. That embarrassing thing you did last week? They've probably forgotten about it. That post you're proud of that didn't get many likes? They're not analyzing why they're worried about their own posts. You're living your life as if there's an audience constantly judging your every move. But this audience exists mainly in your head. You're the star, director, and critic of a performance that nobody else is really watching. You're exhausting yourself trying to impress people who are too busy trying to impress others to pay attention to your performance. The Stoics taught that your worth comes from your character, not your reputation. Your value is determined by your virtue, not your popularity. Your success is measured by your growth, not your recognition. These internal metrics are the only ones that truly matter because they're the only ones you can actually control. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "How much trouble he avoids who does not look to see what his neighbor says or does." He was reminding himself that focusing on others' opinions is a distraction from focusing on his own development. When you're constantly seeking approval, you're not being authentic. You're being performative. Here's what's happening. You've outsourced your self-worth to other people. You let their opinions determine your mood. You let their approval determine your actions. You let their criticism determine your self-talk. You've given away your power to people who don't even know you well enough to judge you accurately. The practice is to develop internal validation. Instead of asking, "What will people think?" ask, "What do think?" Instead of, "Will this be popular?" ask, "Is this authentic?" Instead of, "Will this get approval?" ask, "Will this help me grow?" Instead of, "Am I impressive?" ask, "Am I improving?" This doesn't mean you should ignore all feedback or become completely self-centered. It means you should weigh feedback against your own values and goals. Take advice from people whose judgment you respect, but don't let random opinions derail your progress. The liberation comes when you realize that seeking approval is actually selfish. It's making everything about you. When you stop needing validation, you can focus on contribution. When you stop performing for others, you can start being authentic. When you stop caring what everyone thinks, you can care deeply about what the right people think. Principle 5. Recognize life's natural cycles. The fifth principle is about understanding that everything in life moves in cycles, including loss, pain, and suffering. You're probably trying to avoid all discomfort, holding on to good times and fighting against natural endings. But the Stoics understood that trying to prevent life's natural cycles is like trying to stop the seasons from changing. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Loss is nothing else but change, and change is nature's delight." This is a profound reframe of how we think about loss. Instead of seeing loss as tragedy, the Stoics saw it as part of the natural order. Everything that comes must go. Everything that begins must end. Everything that rises must fall. Think about how you handle endings. When a relationship ends, when a job ends, when a phase of life ends, do you cling to what was? Do you spend energy trying to recreate the past? Do you refuse to accept that this chapter is over? This resistance to natural endings is creating unnecessary suffering. Here's what's happening. You're trying to make permanent what is inherently temporary. You want to freeze the good moments and skip the challenging ones. You want to hold on to youth, success, health, and happiness as if they're permanent states rather than temporary experiences. The Stoics practiced what they called negative visualization, imagining loss before it happens. This wasn't pessimism, it was preparation. By acknowledging that everything you love will eventually be lost, you can appreciate it more fully while you have it. By accepting that every good time will eventually end, you can be present for it instead of anxiously trying to make it last forever. This principle applies to emotions as well. Your sadness is temporary. Your anger is temporary. Your fear is temporary. Your joy is also temporary. Instead of fighting your emotions or trying to make the good ones permanent, you can experience them fully knowing they will pass. The practice is to embrace the cyclical nature of life. When things are going well, enjoy them without attachment. When things are going poorly, endure them without despair. Good times will come again. This doesn't mean you should be passive or accept injustice. It means you should work with life's natural rhythms rather than against them. Plant seeds in spring, harvest in fall, rest in winter. There's a time for action and a time for reflection, a time for building and a time for letting go. The Stoics also understood that every ending is also a beginning. When one door closes, another opens. When one phase of life ends, another begins. Loss creates space for new growth. Pain creates capacity for new joy. Ending creates room for new beginning. Principle 6, seek growth in adversity. The sixth principle is about transforming your relationship with difficulty. You're probably seeing challenges as problems to be avoided, obstacles to be overcome, or punishments to be endured. But the Stoics saw adversity as the gym for the soul, the place where character is built and strength is developed. Seneca wrote, "Difficulties strengthen the mind, as labor does the body." This is a radical reframe of how we think about problems. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" The Stoics asked, what is this teaching me? Instead of how can I avoid this, they asked, how can I grow from this? Think about the most difficult periods of your life. Looking back, weren't those also the times when you grew the most? When you developed new skills, discovered inner strength, or gained wisdom you didn't know you possessed? The challenges you wanted to avoid were actually the experiences that shaped you most profoundly. Here's what's happening. You're treating comfort as the goal of life, but comfort is actually the enemy of growth. When everything is easy, you don't develop resilience. When everything is predictable, you don't develop adaptability. When everything is safe, you don't develop courage. You need resistance to build strength. The Stoics understood that adversity is not something that happens to you. It's something that happens for you. Every challenge is an opportunity to practice virtue. Every difficulty is a chance to develop character. Every setback is a setup for a comeback. This doesn't mean you should seek out suffering or enjoy pain. It means you should use the inevitable challenges of life as opportunities for growth rather than reasons for complaint. When faced with difficulty, instead of immediately thinking this is terrible, try thinking this is training. The practice is to reframe every challenge as a growth opportunity. Stuck in traffic? Practice patience. Dealing with a difficult person? Practice compassion. Facing a setback? Practice resilience. Lost your job? Practice adaptability. Every situation becomes a chance to develop virtue. The Stoics also taught that obstacles are not in your way. They are the way. The path to becoming who you're meant to be runs directly through the challenges you're facing. You don't become strong by avoiding weight. You become strong by lifting it. You don't become wise by avoiding problems. You become wise by solving them. This principle transforms your entire approach to life. Instead of seeing yourself as a victim of circumstances, you see yourself as a student of life. Instead of feeling sorry for yourself, you feel curious about what you can learn. Instead of being defeated by difficulty, you're strengthened by it. Principle 7. Cultivate inner riches. The seventh and final principle is about discovering true wealth, not in your bank account, but in your character. You're probably measuring your success by external metrics, how much money you make, what you own, where you live, what you drive. But the Stoics understood that real wealth is internal and can never be taken away from you. Seneca wrote, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor." This is profound wisdom about the nature of wealth. Poverty is not about how much you have, it's about how much you want. Wealth is not about accumulation, it's about contentment. Think about how much time you spend pursuing external things. How much mental energy goes toward wanting more money, more recognition, more possessions, more status? How much of your happiness depends on acquiring things that are outside your control? How much of your self-worth is tied to your net worth? Here's what's happening. You've been taught that happiness comes from having more, but the Stoics understood that happiness comes from wanting less. You've been taught that success is about accumulation, but true success is about appreciation. You've been taught that wealth is about what you own, but real wealth is about who you are. The Stoics practiced voluntary discomfort to build appreciation for what they had. They would periodically sleep on the floor, eat simple food, or wear plain clothes to remind themselves that happiness doesn't depend on luxury. They understood that the more you need to be happy, the more vulnerable you are to circumstances beyond your control. This doesn't mean you should live in poverty or avoid success. It means you should pursue external things without being attached to them. Enjoy wealth without being enslaved by it. Appreciate luxury without depending on it. Use possessions without being possessed by them. The practice is to focus on developing internal riches, wisdom, virtue, courage, justice, compassion, resilience, gratitude, love. These are the treasures that can never be stolen, lost, or diminished. They're the investments that always pay dividends. They're the wealth that makes you truly rich. Marcus Aurelius was one of the most powerful men in history, yet he wrote, "Very little is needed to make a happy life." He understood that once your basic needs are met, additional possessions add very little to your actual happiness. The richest experiences in life, love, friendship, growth, contribution, meaning, are free. When you cultivate inner riches, you become truly wealthy. You have everything you need to be happy regardless of your circumstances. You're not dependent on external validation or material possessions. You're free to pursue your purpose without being driven by desperation or greed. Conclusion: the art of letting go. These 7 principles aren't just philosophical concepts. They're practical tools for mastering the art of not caring about the wrong things so you can care deeply about the right things. They're about letting go of what doesn't serve you so you can embrace what does. The Stoics understood something profound. Peace comes not from having everything you want, but from wanting nothing you don't have. Freedom comes not from controlling everything around you, but from controlling yourself. Strength comes not from avoiding all difficulty, but from facing it with virtue. You don't have to be perfect at these principles. Even Marcus Aurelius was still reminding himself of these truths in his personal journal. The goal isn't perfection, it's progress. The goal isn't to become emotionless, it's to become emotionally intelligent. The goal isn't to stop caring, it's to care wisely. Start with one principle that resonates with you. Practice it for a week. Notice how it changes your perspective. Then add another. These principles will compound over time, creating a life of greater peace, purpose, and power. Remember, you're not just learning philosophy, you're learning how to live. You're not just studying ancient wisdom, you're applying timeless principles to modern challenges. You're not just reading about Stoicism, you're becoming a Stoic. The art of not caring and letting go isn't about becoming indifferent. It's about becoming selective. It's about caring deeply about what matters and releasing what doesn't. It's about finding freedom in acceptance and power in surrender. Your life is happening right now. Your choices are being made today. Your character is being formed in this moment. Don't wait for tomorrow to start living by these principles. Start now. Start here. Start with what you can control. If this resonated with you, subscribe to Daily Stoic Notes for more ancient wisdom applied to modern life. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. Comment below with which principle you'll start practicing today. The Stoics believe that philosophy should be practical, not just theoretical. These principles work when you work them. They transform your life when you apply them to your life. They give you peace when you practice them consistently. Thank you for joining me on this journey through Stoic wisdom. Remember, you have everything you need to live a life of virtue, wisdom, and peace. The power is in your hands. The choice is yours. The time is now. Keep growing, keep learning, and keep applying these timeless principles to your modern life. Until next time, this is Daily Stoic Notes, reminding you that the obstacle is the way,